A nauseating murder, a plane crash in the Rockies, death on a Christmas morning. The House of Mouse is a happy place, so why were these Mouseketeers' lives marred by such tragedy? When Disney rebooted the Mouseketeers with the all-new Mickey Mouse Club in the 1990s, they hit the talent jackpot. Most of the Mouseketeers went on to careers in music, movies, and television, including Britney Spears. What kicked off during her Disney years was a shocking spiral of alcohol, drug addiction, and mental health issues, some of which were brought to light in the Netflix documentary Britney vs. Spears. That includes things like an increase in the prescription medications she was given on work days. Her mother, Lynn Spears, also alleged in her book Through the Storm that Britney had started drinking seriously at 13 years old. That was just after she became a Mouseketeer. Drugs followed at 15, and the downward spiral continued. Spears was placed under a conservatorship in 2008. Highly public incidents called her mental health into question, and the courts gave her father, Jamie, complete control of her entire life, to the point where she later revealed she needed to get permission to get a hamburger with a friend. Control of her life wasn't returned to her until September of 2021. When it came time to cast the first group of Mouseketeers, it was Walt Disney himself who discovered longtime fan favorite Annette Funicello. She went from a dance recital to national television, and according to The Guardian, she got about 10 times the fan mail of any other Mouseketeer. She was the sort of person that anyone would love to have as a friend. It's no wonder she was so beloved right from the beginning. Then came a 1992 announcement that she had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, or MS, and she was gradually losing control of her legs.
When you think, why me? Why me? I've never intentionally hurt anybody.
Funicello went public with her diagnosis to derail rumors that she had a drinking problem, and she spoke openly about the degenerative effects of the disease. She was candid, too, about finding strength in her religion and her beliefs. When Funicello passed away in 2013 at 70 years old, her obituary reported that her official cause of death was complications from MS. By that time, she'd been living with the disease for more than 2 decades. Tiffini Hale was one of the Mouseketeers from the 1990s era reboot. After her run on the show came to an end, Disney rolled Hale and some other cast members over into the pop group The Party, which hit the charts with a few songs before breaking up in 1993. They reformed a full 20 years later, but Hale wasn't there. On December 30th, 2021, the other members of the party announced on Facebook that Hale had passed away at the age of 46, writing, "Early this month, Hale suffered a cardiac arrest that resulted in her being left in a coma. After many prayers and with her family by her side, our dearest Tiff took her last breath Christmas morning. She is now resting peacefully." Social media was flooded with tributes, first and foremost from her fellow Mouseketeers. Her fellow ex-Mouseketeer Chasen Hampton wrote, "The wish of most young girls in the 90s was to be as sweet, as cool, as talented and gorgeous as Tiffini Hale. Part of her magic was that she never knew how incredible she truly was." Both Dennis Day and his sister Nelda tried out for the Mouseketeers, but only Dennis was selected to be one of the original performers on the Mickey Mouse Club. He continued on in entertainment, fell in love in the 1980s, and eventually married his longtime partner, Ernie Caswell. They had been living in Oregon for years when Day disappeared. That was in July of 2018, and no one alerted his family for a shocking 6 months. In June of 2019, NBC reported that Day's badly decomposed body had been found at his residence. The remains were only identifiable through dental records. 1 month later, the Oregonian reported that Day's former handyman, Daniel James Berta, had been arrested for Day's death and charged with a slew of crimes, including manslaughter and abuse of a corpse. He was already in police custody after being arrested for a probation violation linked to one of the convictions on his already long rap sheet, which included robbery, assault, and an arrest for strangling his girlfriend.
But now he is being known as the man charged with the death of Dennis Day.
Nikki DeLoach has been in scores of TV movies, and way before that, between 1993 and 1995, she was a Mouseketeer. As she explained to Guideposts in 2021, 1 week in 2017 changed her life forever. First, 5 days after giving birth to her son, Bennett, he underwent major surgery to correct a heart defect. Then, 5 days later, DeLoach's mother called to tell her that her father had been diagnosed with Pick's disease, a rare type of dementia. She recalled her despair. "The life you once had, the life you once knew, it's all gone. I had to figure out a way to exist inside this new reality. DeLoach was on the other side of the country, thousands of miles away from her parents, and couldn't go to see them. DeLoach went on to say, "I couldn't get to my dad because I had to keep my son alive. To not be able to get to this man who had spent his life protecting me, taking care of me, and being my biggest advocate was excruciating." In 2017, she shared her son's journey with People and lauded the doctors who saved his life. And on August 1st, 2021, she shared the heartbreaking news of her father's passing on Instagram. It was 1956 when 11-year-old Cheryl Holdridge made her debut on the Mickey Mouse Club, and she quickly became a fan favorite, in no small part due to her big smile and bigger personality. She passed away in 2009 at the relatively young age of 64 after being diagnosed with lung cancer 2 years prior. She became a successful actress after her Mouseketeer days came to a close, but her younger years were marred by tragedy too. In 1964, the New York Times reported that the then 19-year-old Holdridge married Lance Reventlow. That might not be a household name these days, but at the time, he was a serious catch. He was a professional racer as well as heir to the Woolworth fortune, estimated to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million. Tragically, however, in 1972, he was in the headlines of the New York Times again. He had been surveying a piece of land in the Colorado Rockies when his plane was caught in a thunderstorm and went down. He and 3 others were killed in the crash, leaving Cheryl Holdridge a widow at just 28 years of age. Once Christina Aguilera left the all-new Mickey Mouse Club, she overhauled her look, reinvented herself, and set out to forge her place in the entertainment world. She's spoken candidly about how her work ethic comes from an unpleasant place. She told Women's Health, "The fact that my mom was pushed around by my father, I decided early on that I'm not going to be that woman. I'm not going to allow myself to be in a situation where I have to rely on this man or that person for financial means. So I strive to be that workhorse."
I was able to take my mask off and say, this is how I need to do this for myself if I have any chance of surviving.
In a conversation with Paper, she said that it wasn't just in her own home that she was subjected to an environment of domestic abuse, but that she saw it all throughout her neighborhood. She said that she'd always seen it as having 2 choices: become her mother and walk the same path, or make sure she broke the mold and always allowed herself to get out of situations before she got into them. She took the latter road, but she says that her childhood trauma taught her compassion too, particularly for others in the same situation. She said, "I hate it when people say, 'Why doesn't she just leave?' There's psychological damage and mental abuse that comes with being in a situation like that. A lot of people don't have the ability to vocalize it themselves or have the know-how to get out." In addition to being a Mouseketeer on the new Mickey Mouse Club of the late 1970s, Lisa Whelchel was even better known for playing Blair Warner on The Facts of Life. She's no stranger to being in the public eye and all the scrutiny that comes with that. In fact, she told People in 2013 that she struggled with her body image during her time on The Facts of Life, saying, "Our bodies were a topic of conversation. There wasn't the internet, but we knew what people were saying. Joan Rivers called us the fats of life." But still, after her stint on Survivor Philippines, she faced a sudden flood of online hate. She explained to People, "When I was on television in the 80s, it was before the internet and social media, so although I got my fair share of public judgment and even shaming, this was so much more. It didn't help that I was more raw and open and undefended than ever before. It was the equivalent of giving hundreds of people sledgehammers and submitting myself to a fairly painful ego annihilation." The original version of the Mickey Mouse Club ended in 1959, when it was canceled after Disney couldn't get a contract renegotiated with ABC. At the time, the youngest Mouseketeer was Karen Pendleton, the tiny little girl with the ringlets who would sign off for every episode. In 1983, Pendleton was in a car accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. After learning firsthand how difficult life could be for those with disabilities, Pendleton became a powerful advocate, working with shelters for domestic abuse victims and the California Association of the Physically Handicapped. She passed away in 2019 due to a heart attack, according to the Los Angeles Times. Doreen Tracey was one of the original Mouseketeers, and it's safe to say she was the polar opposite of Annette Funicello. While Funicello's post-Mouseketeer career was pretty tame stuff, Tracey became an amateur weightlifter, a promoter for the likes of the Doobie Brothers and Frank Zappa, and toured Vietnam with her own rock band. Disney might not have been a fan of any of that, but it was her 1976 decision to pose for a Playboy knockoff magazine called Gallery, wearing only Mickey Mouse ears, that really set things off. Tracey was effectively blacklisted from all things Disney after that. She went on to say that she had no regrets about doing the spread, and it wasn't until 2013 that she was invited back into the Disney flock. She participated in a reunion special and passed away 5 years later after a cancer diagnosis. The first report of Mark Tate Lynche's death came at the very end of 2015, when CNN revealed that Lynche's roommate had discovered his body and his death was being investigated. Lynche was a part of the Mouseketeers group that included Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Ryan Gosling, and like the others, he continued on in the entertainment world after his stint on the Mickey Mouse Club. Vice called him one of the most talented stars from that group of Mouseketeers, buoyed by a genuinely joyful personality. It wasn't until March 2016 that People shared the details released by New York City's chief medical examiner. The 34-year-old's official cause of death was acute and chronic alcoholism. Fellow Mouseketeer Dale Godboldo wrote in a statement to People, Mark was a beautiful spirit that, although had endured so much, only wanted to spread love and inspiration. I'll miss you, man. I know you're flying with angels. R.I.P. If you or anyone you know is struggling with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP or 357.